Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone past 12 p.m. on Wednesday, October the 15th, that's a UK time, and as usual, I'll be going through questions in order of submission. Repeat/similar questions may well be skipped. I've got nothing particular to announce. I'll be answering questions up until 1 o'clock UK time, which is essentially when this stream will end. If you're watching along live or on repeat, smash a like, hit the sub button. It's all truly appreciated. And a 5-star review goes a really long way for those enjoying the podcast back. Let's get into the questions. Jack Entwistle is first. Says, hi James, would you bench Senesi or Reinders this game week? Also, are Defcon mids worth having at the moment? Feels like the Defcon defenders are better with a 10 threshold and clean sheet chance. If I owned Reinders, I'd play him home fixture at the Etihad. I'd go for that personally. I don't think it needs to be defined as one or the other. You can have Defcon defenders and Defcon midfielders. We spoke a lot about, say, Cullen, Florentino and Xhaka on Monday's podcast. I don't think you need to be defined as one or the other. We probably should be looking towards Defcon defenders, bar exceptions to the rule, such as I think the Arsenal defenders. The midfielders, if you're picking between like a Cullen and a Dewsbury Hall, I think at the moment you pick Cullen, for example. There's nothing at 4.5. You're going that cheap. You are still going Josh King. There isn't a Defcon at that value, but I don't think it has to be one or the other, mate. Ben Thomas says, hi James, is Bruno that bad this week to spend my only free transfer on? I can't see future moves it will enable as I can get to double Arsenal defence without selling. Thoughts, cheers. So, I'm a Bruno Fernandes owner. I'm not desperate to sell. I'm also not desperate to keep. The benefit of selling is opening up the game for me from a money perspective that makes next moves easier. He may well stay for me this week. I certainly wouldn't be buying him this week, though, if that's what you're asking. Is Bruno that bad this week to spend my only free transfer on? I mean, I wouldn't buy him this week. Selling him, I think, is dependent on probably future moves. If you're selling this week, unless you're selling directly to Saka, which if I could do in one move, I would do, to be honest, then you're probably coming down cheaper to Enzo Fernandez, Eberechi Eze, Ismail Assar, maybe a Paquetá. So then it enables you the next move. So it's the relevance of that for you. If you didn't need the money, I wouldn't rush to sell Bruno. Sadashan FPL says, hello James, plan wildcard 13, overall 69k. I have 2 free transfers to get Gyökeres from Watkins. Do you suggest to sell Bumo to a high EO 6.5, 7.5 mid, or keep and downgrade a 5.0 mid, 4.5 goalkeeper instead? So United obviously doesn't look that great this week. I think the 4 fixtures afterwards are reasonable, and you could argue that pretty much from game week 9 it's a long sustained run. Now for you who's wildcarding in 13, the 4 fixtures, it's similar to me with Bruno Fernandes. The 4 fixtures 9 to 12 are okay this week at Liverpool, despite concerns about them. Looks a little bit ugly, doesn't it? Would I sell Bumo to one of those players I'd mentioned previously? Again, I think it's a little bit of a relevance in terms of money. What are you going to do with the money? What can you do with the extra million or $1.5 million? That probably defines this answer rather than all desperate to get rid of Bumo. Gyökeres in for Watkins. I probably wouldn't rush. Let's wait and see what Unai Emery says on Friday, but I suspect Watkins was left out of the England squad last night for precautionary reasons. He'll probably be fine for the game. But I also think it's probably inevitable that you are going to move him on the strategy that you are on. I don't know. Watkins at Tottenham, Gyökeres at Fulham. Is there enough reason to jump now when maybe you might like something different next week, or maybe like Mateta in game week 10, for example? When it's that close, I'm not sure I'd rush that with Arsenal being away to Fulham. It's not likely. You expect Arsenal to win, but they're not likely to go to Fulham and smash the hell out of them, I don't think. Not that you'd expect him Watkins to smash the hell out of Tottenham either, but perhaps with these ones is similar to some of the stuff I'm looking at. I'm just wondering if the week is better off just rolling through and having 2 transfers to juggle things around in game week 9 might be better. Also says, hi James, which goalkeeper to start for Bruggen against Newcastle or Kelleher at West Ham? Yeah, I think McKellar is capable of saving a pen, isn't he? As we've seen. Toss a coin on that. Probably depends what you expect in the two games, but I think that's very, very close. I would maybe just edge for Verbruggen on that one. And which two to start from the defenders? Cucurella at Forest, Porro against Villa, Diouf v Brentford, Goodmanson at Burnley. I'd probably go for the two most expensive ones there, Porro and Cucurella, mate. Zubi says, I'm doing two moves this week, Bruno to Saka and Xavi Simons to Paquetá. I'm considering Ndiaye to Sarr or Enzo Fernandez. Worth it, or should I keep Ndiaye? Strategy here again is a little bit dependent on this. So I think if you're dead end into 12, then Ndiaye maybe becomes an easier sell. I think bar sort of 16 and 17, Everton is quite a sustained, decent run coming up. So if you already use your wild card, I think I'd probably be sitting on that and saying, I'll sit for the minute. If you've got it in hand and looking to use that in game week 13, then yeah, I'd probably jump. Now would feel like the right time. And from the two, again, from a timing perspective, as long as Enzo's given the thumbs up for the weekend, that's probably where I'd go now. GG Magpie says, hi James, hope you're well. I'm on wildcard now. I'm wondering whether triple Arsenal defence is too overkill. Just a bit worried about Saka's rotation going forward, thanks. I wouldn't stress about Saka's rotation too much, mate. With Madueke's injury, he looks fine. He's been in good form for England this week. No suggestion that England were particularly trying to protect him. I actually think the minutes in those two games are probably quite good for him. So I wouldn't stress about that too much. Just as likely to get a rest in a Champions League game. I don't have huge concerns, certainly in the next two for Arsenal. I don't think treble Arsenal is too overkill. I think it's fine. But if something develops where you suddenly want Saka or you want Eze, I would prefer the double. If I was on wildcard now, I'd almost certainly be double Arsenal defence and I would have one of Saka or Eze. I think Eze now appeals, particularly for people like me, in a similar way to Enzo Fernandez, that with me looking to wildcard in 13, the injuries to Odegaard and Palmer respectively make Eze and Enzo Fernandez the sort of players that I can go to, knowing that I don't need to deal with it till that wildcard, I can deal with it then. Whereas others who may want to invest might need to deal with that again further down the line. Harry Baker says, hi James, who'd start out of Truffert or Esteve? And from Bruno Fernandes or Paquetá. Also, who is most likely to finish fifth? Newcastle, Bournemouth, Palace United or Spurs? Cheers and smash a like. Truffert or Esteve? Probably Esteve. Just slightly on this week with Bournemouth going to Crystal Palace, I think. Fernandes or Paquetá, again, I probably would play the fixture here and go Paquetá. Who's most likely to finish fifth? The bookies would tell you at the moment it's Tottenham. I disagree with that because I think we're in a nice position, but I think we're in the sort of position we should be with the fixtures we've had. And you'll have heard me say I'm not too impressed. The underlying data's not great. That's a bit concerning. So I think the most likely is probably Newcastle because I think they're the most capable of those sides to go on a long stretch of winning 4 or 5 out of 6 games in a row. But all of them have a chance, and that includes United. I genuinely would not be surprised with no European commitments if United sort themselves out and go on a bit of a run following this weekend. Wouldn't be surprised, actually. I think most others would, though. Hasselbankis win says, James, early days, but name Tuchel's ideal first 11 for the World Cup. Do England also have the mentality and balls to win a major final this time? Will Tuchel be the difference? We should be a contender in the United States, Canada and Mexico. I don't think that I'm not in my mind thinking that England are likely winners at all. I don't think the conditions are going to particularly help us. The intensity of our league, I don't think it's going to help us going into that tournament next year. I have reservations. I'm quite pleased with some of the stuff I see from Thomas Tuchel's England in terms of particularly their intensity to try and win the ball back early. I don't know if that's conducive to the right way to play a summer tournament in some difficult conditions next summer. I don't know if the strategy behind that is right. Go for it early in games, try and get in front, and then potentially play more on the counter-attack as the game progresses, or just play at a slower tempo. It could be that that's part of the strategy at the moment. Ideal first 11 at the moment. Pickford, Reece James, I think, for him. Difficult to say which two of Konsa, Gay, Stones at this moment. I think Ezri Konsa's done really well under Tuchel particularly. He's right in contendership for that now. Gay is the most natural of the three to play the left-sided. John Stones is the best on the ball of the three. So two of those three. I think left-back probably Livramento, personally. You've got to say Anderson Rice at the moment. And the rest of the team's kind of the same as last night. So Saka, Gordon, Kane. With question marks on Rodgers versus Bellingham and Palmer, I guess. CMP says, hi James, on wildcard and have the budget for 7 to 8 million forward. Would you go Bowen or João Pedro? In either case, we'll move it to Mateta or Voltemade in a few weeks if it doesn't work out. Bowen then. As per the question Prano asked him for Monday's podcast, I like the idea of Bowen at the moment. If you don't feel comfortable with it in 2 weeks, Mateta is your out in game week 10. So yeah, I would chance if it's a purchase that is for the short term, yeah, I would prioritise Bowen actually. CM Punk 2310 says 1 game week early but might make a post deadline transfer on Saturday for game week 9. Would you remove Reinders and take a price drop on Bruno or remove Bruno at home to Brighton? Don't stress about the price drops, mate. It's Champions League football next midweek, mate. Europa League games, Europa Conference games. Good week to wait through, mate, rather than go early. Adam Cooper says, hi James, I'm on wildcard. Which is your favourite of these 3 pairings? Bowen and Paquetá, Mateta and Minter, Voltemade and Sarr. I don't know if I'd want to go to 2 West Ham players together. I think it feels a little overkill to me. More so than, say, treble Arsenal defence, for example. But I feel like the timing rise, Bowen is the standout of that. I from those lists you've gone, Adam, I would potentially not spend all the money and I would go maybe Bowen and Minter with the view to move Bowen on if you're not comfortable, as just said, for someone else's question. Zuby says, another question from me. Would you bench boost this? Dubravka and Dye could be Enzo or Sarr. Yeah, but if it's either of them, they're starting. Esteve and Anderson. That's Joachim Anderson. Burnley concede there. It looks a bit shit, doesn't it? But it's not going to look any better in game week 9 for you. The out one that I keep saying for people, particularly those who are the wild card in later, is game week 17. I think it will likely be quite a clear week in terms of rotation. It's the only pretty much safe week, I think, beyond the game week 13 itself. And game week 13 will possibly have some dangers as well. It's game week 12 after the internationals, isn't it? So yeah, 13 to the 19 cycle. Game week 17 is the only one that feels quite safe. Carabao Cup the midweek before, and the midweek afterwards is Christmas Day, so no one should have a midweek fixture afterwards. So I like game week 17 as an out for people. Now I can't see what your team is. I can't see if you've got a wild card left, but you've also got 5 free transfers potentially from game week 16 to then use to fix shit up for it. I would rather get rid of it as early as possible, though. I think it is one who just can't find anything that kind of lucks out. I think because your Burnley double defence this week looks better than next week. Anderson doesn't specifically look better next week than this week. But Ndiaye does. Yeah, I'd probably get rid. And look, the beauty here, Zuby, is if Burnley did keep a clean sheet, big success. CM Punk 2310 says bench boost 9, wildcard 13. Plan is to get Timber in 8, Enzo in 9. Would you get Gyökeres in 8 and keep Reinders and have 1 extra transfer? Or get Voltemade in 8 and Saka in 10 for Bruno? It's very much kind of just purely Arsenal-Chelsea really kind of on radar for me at the moment. Voltemade could wait. But at that point in 10, you're talking about, when you're talking about again, are you saying Voltemade in 8? So now, okay. Yeah, probably that option with Saka in 10. I think in the short term, until at least the next international break, you should be pretty safe with Voltemade. I covered on Monday's pod that I think their spacing is quite decent over this particular period. We can't see beyond that yet. And obviously Vissa will get reintegrated, presumably in December. So yeah, probably the Voltemade Saka route. Cole Slipper says, hi James, I'm looking to sell Bruno to fund getting 2 of Eze, Sarr or Enzo. Which 2 do you prefer, short term and long term? Long term, Sarr, the clear favourite, but short term, I'd go the other 2 over him at this moment, just because of Sarr going to Arsenal in 9. I don't think this week is a particular standout week with Bournemouth at home. I'm a fixture head, so you're probably asking the wrong person. But if it's long term decision making, it's Sarr. I think in terms of the short term on Enzo versus Eze, doesn't really feel like there's a true Chelsea alternative to Enzo at the moment. Like Garnacho, for example, might be good for 8, having not played for Argentina. Beyond that, questionable, isn't it? And you couldn't even be certain Garnacho would start. If Enzo's got the thumbs up, that's the one. And it could be a good longer term hold. It could become that. Eze, I don't think we can be sure on that. So it's kind of long-term Sarr, middle-term Enzo, short-term Eze is how it feels at the moment, if that helps you. Sean says, hi James, honest opinion on Calvert-Lewin on wildcard. If it facilitates a strong 5-man midfield, it feels like the compromise is that of a weaker 5th midfield with my team value. So lots of discourse about Calvert-Lewin, and I don't think we even name dropped him on Monday's podcast. Look, if you're wildcard in now, you are very tempted to look at fixtures. Leeds' next 5 game weeks is pretty good. I've got them sitting on my own ticker in second, just behind Chelsea, over the next 5. So that appeals. The thing with Calvert-Lewin, I think you have to weigh up as well, is it's not so much just about Calvert-Lewin. It's what's the escape, right, if you hate it. Realistically, he's 5.5, playing for one of the poorest attacks in the league. You can't expect the world. He's not going to light it up massively. He might do very well at that value. Don't expect the world. But it won't take much if he has a couple of blanks in a row for you to feel like, shite. Now, the escape route might be Rodrigo Muniz, who has an injury at the moment, but I saw dip to 5.4 this week. Now, Fulham come in some good fixtures of their own from game week 10. Now, if he's fit and he's back available by then, and we're not expecting him fit this weekend, then there's a potential escape route. And I think that's really important. The alternative I'd probably be looking at, a little bit more expensive in the midfield zone, is Minter. I think Brighton 2 are about to come into a decent run of fixtures. He's probably more from 10 rather than now. But if you listen to COTC last week with Sam and Sai, there's an expectation that Minter could do very well in the fixture this week. He may find space on transition, quite good against Manchester United in 9. If you're asking me, say, Minter versus Calvert-Lewin, I'd rather take that route to Minter and then know that if I didn't like it, there are plenty of places to go to from there. And maybe some new players might even emerge over this period. So I'd prefer Minter as a comparison, but it's more expensive than Calvert-Lewin. I think Muniz's fitness possibly has a little bit of a bearing to how you feel about Calvert-Lewin. Because if you look at it and you're like, oh God, Muniz out for 2 months. What if this goes wrong? Where do I go? You might find that awkward. Because as soon as you hit 13, maybe even 12, if he's not done well before that, you're going to want to bin him. So to what? That's all. And I actually think that if he does do well in those fixtures, you may still want to bin him at that period. So it just needs escape routes. But picking him is fine, as long as you're not expecting the world from it. CMP says, going 3-5-2 on my wild card, so most weeks my 4th defender will be first sub. Do you think it's worth getting Senesi or going with Anderson and keeping 0.5? We'll have Gabriel, Timber, Richards and Rodon. So the answer to that probably lies in Richards. You'd be happy to play in a lot of weeks. So the answer to that probably lies in, well, when are you not? And if you go Senesi, then it's probably more a case of when are you not happy to play Senesi and when are you going to play Richards instead? So how strongly do you feel about Richards, for example? It's probably partly where this is defined by. Again, Fulham coming to good fixtures from game week 10 that's quite sustainable. And I think Anderson's kind of like an ideal defender from that point onwards. Senesi kind of speaks for itself, what he's done so far this season. So ultimately, your decision here is probably, like, what's your confidence in Richards? Do you want to play him every week? How does he rotate with Anderson? If you go Senesi, how does Richards rotate to Senesi? When Senesi's got fixtures you don't want, say like Man City away in 10, how's Richards? Well, you look at that week and you go, right, Brentford at home, fine. But you're in wild card, and I keep trying to stress this to people. What you don't want to do is piss about with these players. 4.5 defenders. Are you happy knowing that realistically, if you go someone like Chris Richards, you should probably sit there for probably minimum the next 2 months, maybe 3 months, and not piss about with it? Focus more on your transfers and the attacking areas. You want to get that decision right. How confident are you in Richards? If you feel very strong, confident, and some of what we looked at on Monday, I think shows up pretty well to make him a good pick, and I'd be very tempted myself at the moment, then yeah, sure, maybe save the money. If you're happy always playing one of Richards or Anderson, then fine, save the money. Different thing to factor in here is Timber probably won't play every game. He's pretty safe at the moment, but you've got to think somewhere along this line here, like an Arsenal fixture at home, and say Brentford in 14 or Wolves in 16, he's not going to play. Right. Who do you want coming in under that circumstance? I think from a structure perspective as well, there would be a temptation to say, right, get yourself a 5. Get yourself a 5 just in case, I don't know, something works out, hypothetically, 4 or 5 weeks' time, you're like, wow, Man City have kept 4 clean sheets in a row. Ruben Diaz is playing every week. I want to jump up to that, for example. So I think structure-wise, the fact there that you're going kind of like 2 6s, basically, Gabriel Timber, a 5, a 4.5, and a 4 is probably a little better. So I would probably say Senesi. Sean says, hi James, Anderson or a Palace defender on wildcard? Have the money for any Palace defender, but currently leaning towards Anderson with a view to benching game week 8-9, then playing for the good run. I think you're just looking for a bit of confirmation bias there, Sean. I'm not going to tell you any different, mate. Carl Slipper says, non-FPL question, who do you think should be the fullbacks for the England squad? Miles Lewis-Skelly had a strange opening 20-25 minutes last night. It might just be a little bit of rust. I think he's a good player, a great kind of integration into Arsenal squad last season. Right backs. I personally would be looking, ideally, James, Trent, Livramento, Hall. I think would be the ideal. Knowing Livramento can play either side. And Trent obviously is kind of like a wild card option that you can use as incredible distribution. Also can double up as an additional midfield player. I think in a worst case scenario, all of those players quite suitable in terms of wing back as well. I don't love Trent at wing back. I've said that a lot. But all of them could play the wing back role if you want to switch it up as well. So that would be probably the preferred 4. We have no idea what Tuchel's kind of view is on Lewis Hall at the moment, but that would be my 4. Next up is just the dad posting stuff. Hi James, wildcard probably 12 or 13. Which forward to switch Goo to, Bowen or Mateta or Voltemade? I'm leaning Bowen for short term, but torn. Thanks for the content as always. Again, it's not anything I haven't already said here. Yeah, I think Bowen's like a now or never, isn't it? I think, realistically. I really think it's this week or no, and no is fine, by the way. But I think it's a now or never, and I would be on the now. I essentially got him in at the start of the season, partly for this run of upcoming 4 fixtures. Ivalio Yokov says, Watkins out, Mateta or Bowen in. I could probably skip this at this stage, can't I? Mateta in 10, Bowen now. Matthew Kroll says, I've lost your question, Matthew. Sorry, mate. I'll find you. YouTube has this brilliant habit of jumping sometimes. Matthew Kroll, good morning. If Alderetti's out and you were planning to bench boost with him and had 3 free transfers, would you swap to Mukele or Rodon us and still bench boost? Thank you. Oh God, this is pain in the arse one, this, isn't it? So we haven't got the prognosis yet. I've seen mixed reports of could be bad, could be cramp. One bit of good news for you is I think Rige Lebris has so far shown that he's probably going to be quite honest, i.e. if he's ruled out, I think you'll probably know. And if he's not ruled out, I'd expect him to play. If he's not ruled out, I would expect him to play and I would proceed and go for it. If he's ruled out, ultimately you're in a position where, subject to how long he's ruled out, it's going to be problematic. And actually looking at Sunderland's fixtures, other than maybe game week 10 at home to Everton, there aren't many opportunities if you've taken the Sunderland route. They sit, but once you get beyond this week, they sit by a mile bottom of my ticker going into and up to 2026. So if he's ruled out, yeah, it's a move. And what's the value of Michele if Alderete is out? Because that's not good. I'd probably go Rodon, personally. It's less thrills on Defcons, but it'll also just sit on your bench every week, and you'll probably never be tempted much to pick him. And if something goes wrong in the immediate, their fixtures are okay in the forthcoming. So I'd probably just about go for Rodon on your own circumstance. But the ideal scenario is you hold Alderete, he's fit and he plays. The word might be good news, so hold fire. Super Duper Dan says, hi James, I'm on bench boost 8. Would you sell Rangers or Undive for Paquetá? Thanks. Nah. I mean, if that's your biggest concern going into bench boost, you're probably in a good position, mate. Minutes should be pretty secure for both, I think. And Dice certainly plays with obviously Grealish and eligible. No reason to think Rangers wouldn't play against Everton either. No. Do I think there's enough upside in the transfer there? No, because I think ultimately it probably cost you another one further down the line. So no, from me, I'd hold fire. Murphy says, hey James, I'm on bench boost this week. Going to be a lot of these, isn't there? With free transfers, would you deem any of Bowen and Dial Fernandez as necessary sells this week? And who do you like as replacements if so? Sorry, I've misread that. It doesn't even say Bowen. It says Romero. Sorry. Would I deem any of Romero and Dial Fernandez as necessary sells? No. I don't know if Ndai is a particular impact to your bench boost, and I don't know if Romero is either. Are they necessary sells? No. Romero's you wouldn't go and buy now, I don't think. But kind of similar to me with Porro, it's like, do I need to force it out? Probably not. And Dyer said this week's not great, but I think fixtures afterwards are okay. He seems to have really kind of torn opinion, I think, and Dyer was like, everyone wanted him in 6, then he blanked in 6, no one wanted him for 7. 7 he did good. Now he's got a tough fixture 8. I'm sure he'll tick over absolutely fine, Illiman and Dyer. And it's with Fernandez as well. It's like, fixture's not great this week. The impact on that is probably more about what are you doing with the money if you sell him. So again, if you can go Fernandez to Saka in one move, yeah, I'd move it. But your question is, would I deem any of those players like necessary sells? No. Chris Bruce says, 3 starters from Virgil van Dijk, Gabriel, you never need to put there, mate. Richards, Goodmanson, Tarkowski. Basically, the list is how my team sits. Yep. Yeah, I'd probably go with that. Yeah, probably Richards over Goodmanson. I think he's probably right. That's probably the debate one there. Matt Stevens says, hi James, Arsenal on wildcard, double defence or double attack. Gabriel and Saka are certainties, torn between Timber or Eze for the other spot. I'd go double defence. As I said on Monday's pod, I think that kind of might be the trend. It feels like you've got to have 2 maybe. Depends how they do in the next couple, but yeah, I think if Arsenal were to keep clean sheets in the next 2, then it's Burnley, Sunderland, and like, oh my God. It will feel like everyone wants 2, I think. So yeah, double defence for me. I'd definitely be double defence if I was on wildcard. Lee Duncan says, on wildcard, want to include at least one Newcastle defender. Ideally want to go Chow. What do you think about Botman, Chow, Shah's minutes? Share. Well, that might be a little bit dependent on fitness upcoming of Livramento and Hall as well, right? So if those 2 are going to be out for a while, and we think Livramento is going to be December, Hall not sure on yet, then Burns going to have to play left back a lot. So the others should be safer, but I'm not sure in terms of Eddie Howe's preference on Cher versus Chow. I would think that if Burns going to play left back a lot, that's the route back into the team for Botman. But he is injury prone. And there might be an impact on that once a Hall or Livramento is back available. And my honest answer to this, Lee, would be that I think I will want a Newcastle defender on wildcard in game week 13 as well. But I don't know if any of them's justifiable. You might remember in pre-season I spoke about Chelsea defenders and said that it's not particularly wanting any of them. It's wanting a Chelsea defender for the coverage. And I think that's probably where it's at with the Newcastle defenders now. None of them going to be good for DEFCON. Burn might have been half decent, but if he's left back, they'll get the odd ones, but he's not going to be worthwhile. And is it likely that they maintain a run of 5 clean sheets in 7 with a better run of fixtures coming up? Do they open up a little bit more? You've also got potential rotation here in terms of headaches with Champions League football as well. I actually think they're probably an avoid just because it's difficult choice. And it's wanting to invest in Newcastle rather than specifically one of those defenders. So actually, if you wanted a Newcastle defensive player at the moment on wildcard, I think the best choice would probably be Pope. And I also understand that you may not want to spend 5.1 on a goalkeeper, and I get that. And so if that's the case, I would just look at other teams, mate. With your likes of Richards, Anderson have obviously been mentioned quite a bit on this stream. Like, truth, they're probably better choices for the saving of the money. Andrew Parker says, "Hi James, I saw Praz on FPL Wire talk about dead spot his third striker to have 5 playing defenders and a strong 5 mid due to change in bonus DEFCON. Do you think the game has shifted this year towards this setup?" Praz is a very good FPL manager and has probably looked at it in far more detail than I have, particularly around bonus points, right? I don't heavily look at, I must be very honest. So he'll have his reasoning on that. I will presume that he's probably got a bench boost out of the way, so that's more beneficial for him on that particular strategy. I do, however, think that there are a number of good attacking players that could be picked right now. I've named 5 previously. Haaland is an obvious. João Pedro, Bowen, you can put Jokeres in there, Voltemade, Mateta's coming back around in a couple of weeks. Muniz might offer solutions from game week 10 as well. I recognise going from Guru, if that's where he's going, up to Muniz is not going to be too far, for example. I do think it will come back around with the strikers. I've been quite persistent on that, and I would be surprised if when I wildcard in 13, bearing in mind my bench boost is also gone, I'll be surprised if I don't have a front 3, personally. I think Thiago might be one of them, by the way. Not at the moment, but and you wouldn't go there at the moment. I mean, it might be one for the 13 crowd and set up rotation to even skip out his difficult 14 and arguably 15 fixtures. The arguably 15 is Tottenham. OGFPL says, "Hi James, I have 2 transfers, a midfield of Saka, Reinders, Fernandes, Bumo and Damsgaard with Haaland, João Pedro and Evan Nilsson. Would you transfer Concert to Timber and Bruno to Semenyo or down Evan Nilsson to DCL?" Yeah, Semenyo's intriguing because for those who are not on, there's a case to say you should probably leave it. 3 of the next 4 are Palace away, City away, and Villa away. But I also ask you this. Who do you all think you'd captain next week if Haaland got injured? Because if Ange is still at Forest, I would be captain Semenyo against Nottingham Forest. And that's important. And, by the way, Haaland is at Villa. That might be the choice that many of us end up making in a little over a week anyway. And for that reason, I'd still prioritise on that possibility, getting him in. His EO is going to be a little bit disgusting next week. I think if Ange is still in charge of Forest and if they have a bad result this weekend, and I can't even guarantee that Ange is still going to be in charge when I speak to Mark Summers tonight. That's how it feels at the moment. So yeah, I would take the Semenyo route. Yahya Vazani says, "Do you think the injury crisis happening right now can move decision makers to a change eventually? For my club Barca, we had Yamal, Rafinha, Firmin, Olmo, Baldi, Gavi, Lewandowski, Juan Garcia in under 2 months." No, because football sells. We've spoken about this a few times. Me and Clayton discussed it on the Clayton James show last week. I think we are heading to a point eventually where the players need to become part of the decision makers in this. And I think until they try and take action that makes them concerned that the game won't happen, this will continue. Even if you think about international football at the moment, right? There's a lot of complaints from supporters who support some of the major nations like it's boring. You know what? It is. So what they want to come up with ways to make it more interesting. So more big games. Yeah, it's what we're and actually that's probably what we want, isn't it? Oh, I want to see England play like Germany or Netherlands or whatever, right? It's better. Not better for the players. Actually, I think it was really striking to me last night that the England effort I felt was really good last night against Latvia. Even in the second half, I felt like the hunting of the ball, the intensity and tempo that they played with was really good. And I think one of the things for that, I was thinking about it during the second half, one of the reasons I think was, yeah, we're still putting the physical effort in, but didn't have to put any mental effort into that last night. You're almost working on like an instinct, and this is where Thomas Tuchel was probably part right in terms of his consistency of selection and building of relationships. There's no mental fatigue on that football match last night. Little one of a physical one, but you know if you didn't make that one run, you could get away with it. No mental fatigue last night. There's a lot of mental fatigue now, and I don't know if that's playing even a role in terms of injuries. Eventually, I do think that we'll get to a point where the players get together from multiple leagues and go, should we not play this weekend? I don't think that decision is this year. Might not even be next year. I think we're going to get to a point where players are going to have to go, hang on, we need a bit more for us here. And until that happens, they'll keep getting flogged. I've spoken about the idea of increasing squad sizes. We've spoken about restrictions in terms of, max 50 or 55 games a season per player, etc. These are difficult things to implement. But maybe it needs something like that. Also, you can get a run of injuries that's just unlucky. Can also happen. Will says, hi James, would you move Ndiaye or Bruno to Enzo this week? Feel like if I want Enzo, this is the week to do it with the others' bad fixtures. Yeah, so I'm going to bottle this question, Will, purely because I'm in a similar dilemma and haven't made my mind up either on Enzo and what I want to do. I'm not convinced that there's enough for me in the transfer, but it opens the game up. That's the biggest thing. If I hadn't died, I would have moved it to Enzo. Only if Enzo was 100% given the, thumbs up, he's fine to play on Saturday. I haven't made my mind up yet, and I might not till as late as maybe even hearing what the Chelsea team might look like just ahead of deadline on Saturday morning is a possibility. So I haven't decided yet. So ultimately will, because I'm in a very similar position, it almost feels wrong for me to advise my opinion to yourself. I think ultimately, as I've said to others though, it may be dependent on what you want to do with other moves. So if it's just Fernandes to Fernandes, just because, I wouldn't bother. If it's Fernandes to Fernandes, because that's going to allow you to go to Saka in the next couple of weeks, or get you up from a 4.0 to like a Gabriel or whatever, then yeah, there's plenty of reason to get it done. Cal says, hi James, start one of Reinders and Dial Burn this week. Reinders was fairly straightforward to me. Valentin Dumitrescu says, hi James, if on a good start, would you suggest to keep it more template and secure the rank, or not think about it too much? Not think about it too much. You probably have got most of the really scary template bits. So Arsenal defensive, Semenyo, Haaland obviously. Otherwise, what's particularly scary? Oh, I think the player that could have hurt me most last week was like Mickey van der Ven. And that's not been staged to cover up EO. That's just like how it landed for me last week. Him and Kudus, I think, were the two players that kind of hurt my rank the most. What are you going to do? Buy Kudus because you're worried, or Mickey van der Ven because you're worried about the EO? Nah, you're not going to go and buy those players now, are you? So, as always, it's all circumstantial. I think ultimately it's very early in the season. 7 game weeks into a 38 game week season is not enough to start thinking about blocking other people, mate. You know what you really want to do? Aim for as many points as you can. Tom G says, hi James, who is the best who is the best duo for game week 8 to 12, your wildcard in 13? Semenyo and Voltamari, or Gordon and Bowen? I missed the boat on Semenyo, and getting him now seems like points chasing. Yeah, this one's close, isn't it? But it's not really. it's fear that puts Semenyo in that conversation. That said, if you take a step away from it, and you might not be able to afford like Semenyo and Bowen, I totally get that. Gordon hasn't scored since when in the Premier League? Is it like New Year's Day or something? It's mad stat or something. He did obviously score for England last night, and I think he's very suitable to what's happening in Thomas Tuchel's system at the moment. I do think he'll be England's starter on the left wing at the World Cup as long as he's fit. I would want to chase that Bowen at the moment, personal. But there is also, I think, Tom, I'm answering that, and you got to accept I got a bit of bias in that because I've sat there with Jared Bowen, it feels like for 3 months, basically. And he was always going in for me, I think, even before we knew about DEFCONs and shit. I think he was always going to go in as part of my plan. So you are probably getting a little bit of a biased answer from me there on that. Yeah, under your strategy, I'd be tempted to take Semenyo on. You can get him in for 1 week if it's really, really scary in game week 12 against West Ham. Game week 13, you probably are going to want him there because despite the fixtures against Chelsea at home and Manchester United away 15-16, there's enough really scary fixtures in there, I think, if he's still doing well. James OO says start Gordon or on die. Despite what I just said about Gordon, I'd play him. Yeah, it's just fixture play, isn't it? Joel Tartaglia says, hey mate, hope all is well on wildcard this week. I already know your answer. Intriguing. But wanted to know Bruno and Eze or Saka and Semenyo. I haven't owned Semenyo all season. Cheers, mate. Yeah, you know my answer is going to be Saka and Semenyo there, mate. Jacko says, does Lewis Miley injury mean he's more likely to play game week 8? I'm not aware of any Lewis Miley issue. I don't know if he might have pulled out of an under 21 squad, maybe. But no, I wouldn't have any particular read on that, mate. No, he might legitimately be injured. And he has had some injury issues since he broke into the squad, right? Ayman Fazeli says, James, it's my plan to bench boost this week. Always a bit risky after an international break. Do you foresee any issues bench boosting Dubravka, Rodon, Stack and Diouf? Rest of my team are solid starters. Not from a selection perspective, mate. No. Minor maybe on Stack a little from Tanaka, but there's no real reason for Leeds to rotate. And a team as part of the best 11. The others, no, you're safe as houses, mate. Aaron Cole says, hello, Aaron. John Ejugru says, bench one of Bumo, Enzo, Reinders, Foden, Semenyo. That's a fun one, isn't it? Bumo feels so wrong, isn't it? That's the fixture answer. He's Bumo, despite Liverpool. Yeah, it's still Liverpool at Anfield. I think that's the answer, yeah. I think so. Yeah. Boomer. Rowan Bim Rajka says, hi James, have Paquetá and Diouf already. He's bowing too much. Go for any attacker up to 8.9 and will be wildcarding in 12. So, if you're wildcarding in 12, West Ham's absolutely ideal for you, mate. Because their worst fixture of the next 5 is game week 12. So next 4, they're probably top the shops in terms of strongest for me. It's fine. It's fine knowing that you can wildcard off it. So it's a specific for you and it's okay. And ultimately your decision here, I said earlier, Paquetá Bowen was a little bit overkill. But I wouldn't deem the fact that I own Paquetá be enough to put me off taking a chance on Bowen. That makes sense. If I've got Bowen, Paquetá I think it's a no for me. But the other way round, I wouldn't want to be put off by Bowen because I own Paquetá. Greg says, why not try Patreon? You can sign up for free and have a look around. You can. Actually, Nico was so busy last week. We'll have a 2 weeks best bits that will be available on Friday night for you all. And that's for free. You just got to be a free member. Sign up to Patreon. No money. Free member. You get no ads content. From Basic tier, access to Slack and my planner and an additional podcast a week from Basic Plus, all the podcasts at Intermediate Plus, and all the additional advanced tier content with myself each week as well. It includes a Zoom call every week for the group. 8:30 tonight, advanced tier patrons. Look forward to a late night Zoom call. Thank you, Greg, for the shout out. Yeah, if you can support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. Well sold. James OO says start Rodon, Senesi, or Richards. Senesi, I'm betting you've got Semenyo. Just about. Nice headache to have, though, James. Monk says, hi, James. Thoughts on Dyer? Would you keep or look to move to the likes of Enzo or Sarr this week? Don't think, again, I'm looking at next week and seeing Everton v Tottenham and thinking, you're asking the wrong person. I don't think I'd run to Sarr this week because he goes to Arsenal next week. So over the course of the two, is Sarr significantly better than Dyer? No. I don't think so. I get the want to go to Enzo now or 9. I totally understand that. So I think, yes, if he's given clarity Enzo Fernandez, yes, I would be tempted and Dyer to Enzo. Danny says, hi, James. What is your coffee shop of choice? My coffee shop of choice. That's interesting. It's the man on the stall at Harry's school. No, you mean from the chains, don't you? I think preference from the chains for me is Starbucks reluctantly. I'm a sucker for the caramel frappuccino, mate, which I have to. Now it's getting colder. They're amazing in the summer. Get me one of them. I think the coffees are probably right as well. But I'm not against any of them. Nero, Pret, Costa. I'm not that fussy. Like I'm a water snob. I'm not a coffee snob. That might not make sense to people, but those who've been around long enough probably do know I'm cautious of what water I drink, probably more than what coffee. Bad Company says, hi, James. Play Petrovic or Dubravka this week. Also, has anyone mentioned David looks like Ryan Reynolds? Oh, Dave, I'd probably take that as a compliment, mate. Could be worse, mate. No one told me what I look like other than a state. Play Petrovic or Dubravka. I probably would go Dubravka. I probably would chance it this week. Oni Dazia, my friend, says, hi, James. Thoughts on the World Cup African qualifiers playoff? Nigeria versus Gabon and Cameroon versus Congo. Who are your pick to go through to the international playoff from these nations? I can't say I've seen or known enough about them to give truthful, honest. I would say that experience could well play a factor here, though, for Nigeria and Cameroon as two established African nations who do regularly qualify for World Cups. But then it might also be concerning from Cameroon's perspective that they finished behind Cape Verde, or Cabo Green, as I've been reliably informed by Nico, who qualified amazingly. Second smallest nation ever to qualify for a World Cup. I hope they draw Portugal so he can actually support a team against Ronaldo. Let's go Nigeria, Cameroon, Arnie, but I wouldn't have enough knowledge on the 4 teams involved, mate. GST 99. Hi, James. Oh, God, have you written a whole wildcard team? Can we just simplify this? Because by the time I read them names, I forgot, mate. Should I do Watkins to Bowen or Dorgu to Roden bench boost? Wildcard in hand, 1 free transfer. What's your alternatives on the bench boost? And I don't think that the bench boost should necessarily be defining, right? Because at the same time, you keep Dorgu, right? You wouldn't want a bench boost of him this week, but then is there another week where it's better than hit for him? Like, does it land better in like game week 12, for example? Don't know. Maybe there's another alternative when you want to move him onto a different 4.5, or for example, United have good fixtures, like I said, after this week. So maybe that comes back around. Therefore, I would go Watkins to Bowen, mate. Nimmel B says, hi, James and chat. I have 3 free transfers. Should I sell Alderete to bench boost or play bench boost next week? As covered for someone earlier on, let's keep our fingers crossed for you that it's good news. Wait for what Regis Labrie says, mate. James Wright says, would you bin any of Van Dijk, Munoz or Porro for Gabriel, or wait a week or so? I was looking at some solutions, which I'm going to do for advanced tier patrons today. Actually, I'm not really going to look at them, but I was looking at solutions over the next couple of weeks. And Van Dijk doesn't sit right with me, but as per Monday's pod, you look at that clearance data and you think, I don't want to sell him. Don't sit right. Porro, I'm in no rush to sell, but I'm also definitely not sitting there thinking, I want to keep. But it's like each week, is it definitively better for Arsenal? Is Arsenal at Fulham definitively better than Porro at home to Villa this week? And it's awkward, right? Because of the potential open play and also potential some set piece threat from Porro as well. Doesn't sit right. And Munoz, if I owned, would be going absolutely nowhere at the moment. I wouldn't even have a qualm playing him at Arsenal particularly. So the thing is, though, like ultimately you are going to want to definitely go there. So if you don't want Van Dijk long term, yeah, switch it. If it's the move from Porro, maybe is it wait a week? But also I feel like the answer to that might lie in Raul Jimenez fitness. Again, to come back to the Fulham problem. If Fulham don't have a recognised forward against Arsenal, then you'd right fancy Arsenal for a clean sheet this weekend. James Wright says, boom Saka for free. Yes, I would. But, kind of as per the data on Monday's pod, I'm pretty sure that one of these United players is going to come good soon. Kind of feels like it's got to. And I'll be looking at Wildcard 13 draft on that video I'm doing later today, and Boomer might be in it. But yes, if I was sitting there with that decision right now, yes, I would make it. You might even find it's an exact swap of the transfer around about game week 15 or so, maybe even. Savanch Singh, hello my friend, says, hi James, thinking of taking a -4 to take out Cunha and Watkins for Saka and a forward I'm not sure about. Would you go for Isak instead of Gyökeres, since I have the money in bank and Eze might become an option? I think Isak, for me, in my opinion at the moment, it's a game week 12 conversation. So this time, 4 weeks before they play Forest, how's Isak look? How do Forest look? Conversation then, I think. Before, wouldn't be running to that, personally. We might have more information in terms of the chance of Isak Ekiteke being used together as well. The moving out of Cunha, get it. Watkins, get it. The want for Saka, get it. The forward you're not sure about is probably ultimately where this is decided and how much money you're looking at. But I'm assuming it's loads, because you're talking about it's got to be. You're talking about Isak, isn't it? So it's pretty much anyone in the player base. I'd go Bowen. You could end up just leaving that. It sounds daft. It's like against our principles, isn't it? Leave the money in the bank. Imagine you're sitting there in a blessed position to go Bowen or Isak in 12. Just on that, it's like, why has the money got to be spent? This is one for those who used to play Sky Fantasy Football. You knew you was going to make a transfer in 3-4 weeks. Admittedly, those prices didn't change. You'd set it up. So why couldn't we do that in FPL? I think Jared Bowen, truthfully, will outscore Alexander Isak over the next 4 weeks. And I think he's capable of doing it significantly, subject to what those Isak minutes are. So why not just set that up? Bowen now, Isak in 12 if it sits right then. And if it doesn't, there are alternatives, Mateta, etc., right? Or just keep going with Bowen. We probably won't know, because West Ham's fixtures from 12 basically are a bit of a shocker. Aaron Cole says, good afternoon, James. Replace Porro or Milenkovic this week, and the best replacement. Already have Anderson, Alderete and Gabriel. Money, no restriction. Another Arsenal player, mate. He's my top pick from that. Milenkovic goes first. There's very little reason to be keeping him. That's reality. Brian Oxar says, Evan Nilsson to Bowen or Voltemade. What are your thoughts and your preference? I think you'll have got it by now, Brian. I think. Good luck. Right, FPL says, good afternoon, James. I still have eyes on wildcard 13. Do you think bench boost is best used before, even if transfers are tight? Would need to get Goo out and have 0 in the bank, or wait till post wildcard? So, what's the cost of a transfer? It's one for the smarter guys than me, right? What's the cost of a transfer? To get to a bench boost position is probably going to cost you 2 transfers. and you're missing probably two of the best opportunities, which is now on 9, subject to what's in your team. Then it becomes more awkward again just because the fixtures for the weaker teams. Your out here probably, righty, is probably it's 17, as I said. Set your team up for 13. Don't even give 17 too much fault within that. Look beyond the bench boost. Pick players, and you want to do this naturally anyway, coming into the December period. You'll want to pick more established players that you feel safer with from a minutes perspective. And if something goes wrong, you've got 5 free transfers in 16 to put you in a position where, okay, I need this player's injured. I made the wrong choice. We'll all make a wrong choice on a wild card. It's like just how it goes. Make them 2 changes. I've still got 3 free transfers moving forwards, and I can bench boost as well. I think 17 is the out for the majority of people who are looking at wildcard 13 and struggling at this moment. But it's not to say it's wrong for people at the moment, not at all. I think the preference, right, would be, yes, use it now on 9. But I wouldn't go whacking up my team just for the sake of bench boosting, mate. FPL Underdog David says, would you sell Bruno to Enzo to afford Lacroix to Gabriel next week, or sell Munoz to Timber this week? Backline of Munoz, Lacroix, Anderson, Rodon, and Senesi. So you've got no Arsenal. Okay, let's see where this is at. I mean, look, ultimately, pretty good position there because you've got some good coverage of Anderson, Palace, Senesi, 4.0. Looks fine. Get not wanting maybe the double Palace defense, particularly under a circumstance we could sit here in 3-4 weeks. It's like, oh my God, I want Sarr and Mateo. Get that as well. I'd be so loath to sell Munoz if I owned. I definitely wouldn't be doing it this week. Next week, yeah. Yeah, I obviously definitely wouldn't do it for -4 now. I think, yeah, ultimately, David, I would be looking at that going, I've got to get an Arsenal defender, and there would be my bias. So, yes, I would make the first move of Bruno to Enzo, and you never know, one of them players might get injured between now and then and make that decision for you. One decision could even be, with the money you're putting in the bank, is it just Rodon to Gabriel? Something to think about. Chris Bruce says, watching the match yesterday and wondered why Spence was playing, but then thought, are there any of the right backs that are better than him at the moment? I thought Jed did really well last night. Actually, I think he's got quite a nice understanding by the looks of it with Saka, ironically. Just little things like where he was passing the ball to and timing and his support of him. And you could see his confidence grow in the second half when he tried a few things. He put one beautiful cross in. I'm not talking about the Rabona cross, but he put one particular beautiful cross in the second half. And that was nice to see. But I've also said, and kind of as answered earlier on, like, I don't think he's part of England's best quartet of fullbacks. Right back availability. I mean, Tuchel was playing Kyle Walker against Senegal, right? That seems easy to forget. Reece James injured, Trent injured, Livramento injured. There's your answer. Maybe there's a few others as well. Just trying to kind of look through. Probably not at the moment. Probably is then Jed. As it stands at the moment. Yeah, probably is. Yeah, just scanning teams why I blagged this. Yeah, that's probably right. That's why he played. But he did all right. Georgie Vatsov says, I'm looking at to free at least 0.2 of Romero, ideally more. I already have Gabriel, Van der Ven, Senesi, Alderete. I'm considering Diouf and Richards, maybe Rodon, some cheap Chelsea defender playing next 5. The problem with Chelsea is rotation, but I would say Trevor Chalobah is under strong consideration for me. I might even be going there this week. Again, I haven't made any decision yet. So Richards, I think, of the ones there, Georgie. But again, is that a transfer that can wait till game week 10? Like, is there enough reason to go from Romero to Richards for the next 2? I think probably not. Game week 10, you'll look at it and go, yeah, this is an easy transfer now. And something else might happen in terms of an injury where you're just close enough and stay where you are. Oh, blimey. It's 1:03. So I've got 3 questions I can see on screen. So I'm going to cover them from Jack, Kalen, and G. Lee. Jack says, what do you think of the advantages are to wildcard 13 over those who went 6 and 8? Seems like 6 and 8 all have 3, 4 free transfers and better team value. Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly in terms of the team value perspective, and certainly the build up of free transfers is easier because the rest of us are potentially fixing problems. I just think it's the transition to the next set of fixtures around City, Newcastle, Manchester United, Palace, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, maintaining Liverpool, Arsenal. I feel like it all happens then around about game week 13. Whereas for me, the last few weeks has been really a focus on Chelsea without their best player at the moment. And Arsenal players have been kind of the main focus. And the other one was Manchester City. And most were probably already on Haaland or bought him in 6 in any case anyway. So that was my view. Was there's no right or wrong. My view was very much that the transition through this period would be much easier to manage than the next period, even in spite of those 5 free transfers. Because I personally don't want to be using the 5 free transfers for Christmas. I want to be using them as then that's my carry of 5 free transfers on a regular for when we hit into a double and blank season. That would be the ideal solution for me. So I don't intend to set up many scenarios where I'm going, I'm going to get these 4 players for 3 weeks and then transfer them to these 4 players. Because I'll make natural mistakes on wildcard and have to use some transfers, I'm sure. Kalen says England likely to play 4-2-3-1 at World Cup. Saka right wing, Gordon left wing. That leaves 10 position and backup for Foden, Palmer, Madueke. Madueke won't play 10, mate. Grealish, it won't be Grealish. Might be Grealish left wing. Rodgers, Morgan Gibbs, White and Eze. Whoever is out, there'll be uproar. What would you do? What would I do? Well, Saka can go in with Madueke. I think that's the 2 for right wing. I do think on what we've seen so far, that might mean that Jared Bowen, to add to your list, might end up being really unlucky. Left wing is definitely Gordon. At the moment, it's kind of Rashford's to lose in terms of probably next in line for that position. None of the players you mentioned there other than Grealish are kind of natural for that position. I think Morgan Rodgers as probably arguably the most multifunctional, in terms of position, probably goes in. Palmer's, you've got to find a place for Palmer. And we need Jude in there as well, right? So I think Grealish will be unlucky. I think Eze could be unlucky. Generally, he might be. I think Gibbs White may be unlucky. Phil Foden has got to do a lot more to get back in past some of these names. In all reality, that's the truth. But ultimately, it'll probably be decided by a couple of them injured anyway. Final one. That's a good bottle job, that. Final one from G. Lee says, Hi, James. Is Gakpo minutes safe in the next 5 game weeks, or will Wirtz take minutes off Gakpo? We might take minutes off each other and other players, and also I think they can play together. Difficult to say is the honest answer. I would be very surprised if Cody Gakpo did not start against Manchester United this weekend. Beyond that, yeah, there's liable to be some potential rotation. I think it's one for me. I don't really want to sell him, actually. But I think it might be one where I get to a game week and I think, I don't think he's starting this week. And then he goes. And it's actually another strong reason for me in terms of maybe considering rolling this week rather than making a transfer. Because I could think with all the will in the world, I go like Bruno Fernandes to Enzo Fernandez this week. And I go, that's cool. So I'm going to use the money to go from Konsa to Saliba, hypothetically. And then I don't think Gakpo starts and a Porro gets injured or something else changes. And it's like, what's happened here? So I need to be aware of those sort of things once I make my choice of what I'm doing this week. I'll happily tell you players under consideration for purchase this week are Chalobah, Enzo Fernandez and Eze. And I'd be surprised if I consider anyone else for transfer this week. It might end up being none of them. That's all for stream today. Sorry for those of you who have not got to questions and stuff. If you want to tag me on Blue Sky or on Twitter, that means tag me, not slide in my DMs. Thank you. I'll happily answer your question at some point later today. As said, Clash of Correspondence tomorrow is Forest versus Chelsea with Mark Southerns and Gary Mantle. For the audio listeners, a 5-star review goes a really long way. YouTubers, smash a like, hit the sub button. For the benefit of those on the audio, cue music please, Manchild.